Another cool morning, although it's not in the 40s. A little bit of sunshine coming through the trees there. Um, Today we'll have a topic versus like just looking around at the garden, although we'll kind of walk around and talk. So a question people may have is, you have Biden's apple, you have goldenrod, you have fruits and this and that, forage foods, things that can be used as herbs and spices. Why don't you dry and collect Biden's alba for teas and for smoking? Why don't you do tinctures or dried goldenrod for teas and other things supposedly to remedy respiratory issues, asthma, whatever? Why don't you collect your fruits and berries and make cottage foods with them? Sweetbreads, jams, jellies, other little desserts that are within the realm of non-permitted, which you're allowed in the state of Florida, to make things, to make money. Why aren't you doing all these things? So in the state of Florida and several other states, you'll have cottage food laws, and not all states have them. Some of them don't allow any sort of food, and sometimes there's a gray area. But each state that allows cottage foods has their own rules and regulations. Basically, you have to label it a certain way. You can't use certain ingredients. I don't know if it's eggs and milk and cheeses and stuff like that you can't use, at least in this state. You have to have like a location listed where it's made, I believe. And it does not have to be inspected, but with the caveat that if somebody complains, the government can come out, health department or whoever it is, and inspect your kitchen. So I have thought about doing this in the past, but I figured that I would need a dedicated, like a trailer or something, like a kitchen, just set up like a camper or whatever, that's sterile all the time, no kids running out, no dogs, something you could keep clean and sterile, without much hassle. So you do your work, you make your jams, jellies, breads, or whatever, and you do that. Now isn't the same as like the herbs and stuff. I don't think there's probably any regulation with that. You just dry your goldenrods and your Biden's alba, or you make tinctures out of them. And there's probably a lot of other leaves and different stuff that you can forage, or things that I could grow that people use as teas and stuff. The herb market is a big market. I've seen for years in my lifetime. I have seen herb shops, just where people are selling vitamins, herbs, even honey and, cane syrup, and kind of all in that same little realm of things. And people have had businesses that were 30, 40 plus years old making money doing so. I haven't really known personally many people that actually collected their own herbs, dried their own herbs, made tinctures with them, and had a business like that. They were usually doing it from outside sources. And even one of the permaculture videos I seen on YouTube from I think Peter Santanello was had a few videos about an old man, I think in North Carolina. He could not provide enough herbs for everybody, so he had to go to outside sources to get those things in to provide, a service to everyone. A market and customer base locally based on just a few herbs and spices that you are growing on your own property, or that you're foraging, or, in a little area that a forest or something that you have permission to forage on. It's, to me, on a local level, selling stuff, how are you going to get that customer base selling, 3 or 5 items? So maybe online you could be it's Etsy or something like that. But I guess my biggest thing is time. If I had 100 hours in a day, then I could probably finish many projects, tie up loose ends, and do herbs and cottage foods and stuff like that. I have seen a lot of businesses start out as cottage food businesses, and I've seen a lot of them, not last a long time, because these cottage food places, they'll set up in like a flea market or something, selling their bread and stuff. And, just like me saying, if I have 5 items, I'm not going to get the customers on a local level. Well, they bring, maybe 50 or 100 different baked goods and, stuff like that. That means they're spending a ton of time, a ton of money, with things that they have to bring in from outside, sugar and everything, and flour, yeast. So I've seen them go out too, and their prices usually are very, very high. We think of going to Walmart or Kroger or something and buying a big old jar, like, I don't know, 16 ounces of jelly for like $4, $5, $6. And then you go down to these cottage food markets and they have a little 4-ounce jar for $8 or $10. It's kind of hard to justify that, and their breads are more expensive. And I mean, you can say, oh, you're supporting a local business and you're getting organic this, and but there really isn't a fine line. You either got the customers, in an area where everybody wants to pay high prices, and or they don't, and you have to spend so much money, you spend much time making 100 loaves of bread, cookies, muffins, this and that, every weekend. How do you justify the hours you put into it unless you do get money? How much of that stuff is actually being thrown away because you're selling 5 or 10% of your inventory in a week, and you have to do something with whatever is expiring, the expiring food. And this is probably why a lot of people, despite their feeling like they have to charge so much for stuff, going out of business, within a year or something. And when we try to justify prices, or why we do not want to pay high prices for stuff like cottage foods, we always compare it to, the grocery store prices, obviously. But I have made, plenty of breads, plenty of jams and jellies and preserves. I'm not sure how I would make it on such a substantial level in a timely manner and in an affordable way. I can only process so many, jars of preserves, dewberry or whatever, and you got a limited supply you can collect, especially something like, the wild dewberries here. You only have so much each year you can get. Wild blackberries. So that leads you to buying organic or inorganic or some combination of the two. Fresh fruits, frozen fruits, canned fruits, dried fruits, and stuff like that. Again, nobody is just going to start a local business based on being able to have 2 or 3 or 5 items. They have to go out to outside sources to get pulp and anything that they need to satisfy a broader array of audiences, of consumers, customers, whatever. So I definitely understand not wanting to spend 60 or 100 plus hours a week preparing your your foods to sell at a flea market or whatever over the weekend, and not wanting to get paid for it. What, how much is your time worth? If you worked a regular job or even a minimum wage job, you could potentially make more money than doing that, because once you say your prices are this is what my time is worth, I have to add my expenses. Are you going to pay $8 or $10 for a little loaf of bread that's like 10, 11 inches long? Are you going to pay $8 or $10 for a 4-ounce thing of jams or preserves? And believe it or not, I have looked at like the people that homemade chocolate, the, what do you call it, with the stuff in it. I went to a chocolate shop one time where the wife was the chef. Oh my gosh, it was expensive. I mean, we got free samples. We spent, probably $40 to $60 on a little, 6 or 8 chocolates and a couple little other desserts. It was very, very expensive. So, you got to put time in it, expenses. You got to have molds. You only have so much oven room to do your cooking at one time. So, even if you could prepare everything at once, you're not going to have an oven that is 100 foot long, so you can just shove everything in there at once. You have to be there constantly to put in, pull out, put in, pull out. Change your molds out, whatever. Since I'm going to make jams and jellies and preserves, just most likely not for cottage food sales. And, I don't think that kind of thing is for me or for us right now, because raising kids and time and everything else. But, on the other hand, herbs, spices, that is something that is always on our minds. That is, and even selling fresh fruits, possibly fresh, greens or vegetables later on. That is something too that, you don't have to process anything. You pick them, you send them to the market. You hope you can make some money. If you have excess, maybe you can wholesale some of it out. If not, you have to go to the compost bin and dump everything in the compost. But yeah, drying herbs and all, that's definitely something we would consider if we just had a market, which, like I said, third time I said it at least, we can't send, 3 or 5 items to a local market. We'd have to find like a little online niche somewhere, Etsy or something, where we could sell those things. But we also have to look at our competition. How many other people are selling the same thing, and for what price?